I really don't think they're replacing Yae. Hello there, Flip here, and today we're going to be going over Yae's changes, or well, at least briefly, and then we're going to discuss just how important she is to Stellar Conduct teams and why I just don't see her getting replaced anytime soon, as this has become a very divisive topic for some reason. But before we do that, as always, if at any points during the video you were entertained or informed, make sure to drop a like and even consider subscribing, as I talk on various topics regarding Genshin's meta, and I'll try to keep you updated. Shout out to all my lovely channel members, I really appreciate your support, it means the world to me. I hope we, yes, me and you, are all tuned in for the Silali skin. Also, I feel like the reason people are so against Yae is kinda because the power creep discussion regarding how strong these units are does get out of hand very quickly, but for power creep I am fully in support of, as any of you guys can take advantage of it for free. Let's talk about the amazing browser I've been using for a while now, Opera GX, that has a plethora of great features to set itself apart from other browsers. And don't worry about losing any of your data or having to rebuild your bookmarks and extensions, as in just a few clicks you can easily import any of that information over from your old browsers, which is a level of quality of life I haven't experienced in a long time being a gacha player. It almost brought me to tears, and then my artifacts rolled terribly. Now with Opera GX, one of the tools I like using the most as someone who multitasks a lot is the video pop-out feature, which you'll see by hovering over any video. It allows me to play YouTube videos or any shows I'm watching while I'm trying to cycle through all my dailies, or just going through events, or keeping me sane while I have to recalculate the DPS of certain teams again. It also gives me more time to look through the GX store, which houses tons of amazing mods that only keep getting updated with both official and fan-made mods that allow you to customize your browser any way you'd like, from more basic things like backgrounds and wallpapers, here is a Nefer one that I think looks amazing, all the way to being able to have custom noises for typing and clicking, as well as a splash screen for whenever you load up the browser. There is such a large database of mods for you to go through, and you're able to customize them any way you'd like, through mixing and matching your favorite parts of each mod, creating your own personalized experience, which I think is very cool. And due to the built-in ad blocker, which is really easy to set up, it's a very convenient 2 clicks away. You can surf the web freely knowing any pop-ups and intrusive ads won't get in your way. This sadly doesn't protect you from the ones in-game though, and I'm only scratching the surface of features this browser has. It really can do everything you need it to, so if you want a tier 0 browsing experience, make sure to download Opera GX for free with my link in the description below. Thank you to Opera GX for sponsoring the video. Now back to it. Now regarding Yae, there's 2 things we need to talk about, the first being Stellar Conduct, which I'm tired of discussing every single video, but we have to, and there's also Yae's changes itself, which are pretty minor, all things considered. Okay, Stellar Conduct, let's do this one more time. When you react with Electro and Cryo, and someone with a Stellar Linchpin is on the team. Actually, that may not be true because apparently some characters can't make a anyways, if you are playing Sanjone or Cryo Traveler for what we know right now, and Electro and Cryo react together, this is going to create a stellar field. Every 4 seconds, the stellar field is going to refresh itself, and within those 4 seconds, all the Electro and Cryo application you do is going to be recorded. And the more application you have, the higher the level your stellar field will be, and the higher your stellar field's level, the more stat buffs you receive from it, which is a multiplier on your stellar conduct damage, as well as a generic Cryo and Electro damage bonus. So you want to constantly apply Electro and Cryo to keep your stellar field level high, and whenever a stellar field is created, this will cause certain characters to gain unique buffs. Yae Miko is one of those characters with a unique buff, and she gains a ton of them from being within a stellar field. And she does also get some base kit buffs if you have unlocked her quest buff thing, whatever. For starters, her Ascension 1 will get a buff, where when you have 3 totems active, recasting Yae's turrets will cause you to deal additional Electro damage, and if a stellar field is active, the recasting damage will deal stellar conduct damage instead of regular Electro, so it will just be a stronger hit, as not only does it have higher scaling, it gets the additional benefits like ignoring defense and so on. And Yae now gains an additional passive, where her turrets now last an additional 10 seconds for 24 seconds total, so you can play her in much longer rotations without the need to be recasted. Additionally, whenever you trigger Superconduct or deal Stellar Conduct damage, the next turret hit from Yae will gain a cool buff based on 80% of her attack, making one of her turrets per wave stronger, assuming you're consistently triggering Stellar Conduct or Superconduct. And lastly, the most impactful change for her sub DPS is the fact that whenever you're in a Stellar Conduct field, when the enhanced turret hits an opponent, this will now additionally deal a Stellar Conduct hit. And these Stellar Conduct's turret hits are extremely strong, and they now make up a majority of Yae's damage, and is the main reason why she's become such a powerful sub DPS. Oh, and I guess adding on to C0 Yae, her turrets no longer reset when you cast her burst, but Yae's burst sucks, so don't worry, this doesn't really matter. The next biggest thing is going to be the fact that they adjusted Yae's constellations, and Yae's constellations are free to obtain. And I cannot stress this enough, if you have Yae or are going to get Yae, please select her C1 from the constellation selector. And even if you have her C1 already for some reason, get her C2. There really isn't anything else worth it currently from the con selector. I don't understand why so many people are finding this so complicated. Yae C1 is now one of the best in the game, just pick it. Now to quickly also go over how you want to build Yae for these new changes. Technically all of her damage isn't stellar conduct damage, so if you really want to cope you can get by fine by just using something like Golden Trope or Gilded, but you really should be farming the new set for her. It gives crit rate, which makes building her easier, and it's just her de facto best in slot set for these teams. And then for main stats, she doesn't really care about using an Electro Goblet anymore since more of her damage is leaning towards stellar conduct, so running an attack or EM Sands and an attack or EM Goblet both are fine for her, but to be the most optimal you want to run the opposite Sands for your Goblet. So if you're using an Elemental Mastery Sands, then use an attack percent Goblet, and if you're using an attack percent Sands, then Elemental Mastery Goblet is better. So choose your best attack piece and best EM piece, and that's about it. And then for your circlet, of course crit is best. In most cases you're going to be running a crit damage circlet. This is because Yae ascends with crit rate. The Stellar Conduct set gives you 16% crit rate, and on top of this you're most likely going to be running her in double cryo teams. That is also an extra 15% crit rate, so good luck running a crit rate circlet. So now with all of this being said, we can now get into the meat of the video. Is Yae worth pulling for? Is she going to be another Venti? And why do I think she's not going to be replaced anytime soon, if at all? Now going over if Yae Miko is worth it, she is absolutely. Looking at her impact for a Sandrone team for example, it is pretty much night and day the difference between a C1 Yae and having no Yae at all. And even if you were to get Sandrone's signature weapon, which is one of the better ones in the game, it still doesn't overcome the difference. So if you were to pull a 5-star, then getting Yae is the biggest impact you could have. And this case rings the same for other Stellar Conduct DPSs like Risley or Sino. Yae C1 is simply the biggest single Primogem investment you can make to them to increase their team's DPS. And this isn't going over the other quality of life benefits she has, like her low field time, her high uptime on both her buffing and damage, the fact that she's very rotationally flexible due to her low skill cooldown and high uptime. Her Electro application is also pretty okay for stellar field stacks, and even though she has a few cons, like the fact that her AoE is pretty bad, and also she isn't a stellar field enabler herself, so she relies on needing a stellar field enabler to function well, but overall if you have a stellar field enabler, there's just so many upsides into pulling Yae. So as of right now, she is absolutely worth it. But even with that, there are still two somewhat interesting things regarding Yae. The first is that we're using C6 Beidou as a baseline, so in the future if we ever get a better Electro unit that can serve as the baseline Electro for these teams, which shouldn't be hard considering how much work it takes to run Beidou, there's a chance that later on the baseline support you have is stronger, and therefore getting investment on your DPS is better over getting Yae. And also, Yae at C0 is kind of mid, so part of me wants to believe the reason why Yae seems so strong is because they're going to be balancing supports around a C0 Yae, which isn't anything that crazy. So even if a support in the future is able to beat C0 Yae, anyone who did manage to snag C1 Yae from the selector are never really going to feel the impact of that, if that makes sense. Also, I'm sorry, I'm tired of people bringing up Venti and Varka into this discussion as if they're anything comparable. From day one, anyone who is theory crafting Varka all came to the conclusion that Venti was the weakest character in this team, or at least Venti and Bennett were the weakest characters in this team, and I wonder which two characters got replaced. Venti's buffs, while they did allow him to function as a support, most of his buffs, his new weapon and constellations, they all mostly revolved around his personal damage and him being a better DPS. And once again, when it came to replacing Venti, he was the weakest and least important member of this team. He was going high diff with Sucrose, and unlike the circumstances right now, getting Varka's signature weapon was better than pulling for Venti. And if you compare that to Yae, she's first of all the best support on this team, so looking at the pecking order, she would be the last to be replaced, and all of her buffs and constellations revolve around her being a better sub DPS or support. Yae does more for Sandrone than Enefa does for Flins, or Linnea is doing for Zibai. Please stop comparing her to Venti like she's bait, I just don't see this being the case. Venti's buffs were not tailor-made for him to support Varka, Yae's buffs were made in mind with supporting Stellar Conduct DPSs. And even thinking about this logically, they would have to make two Electro units that are stronger than Yae to replace her, because if they released a stronger Yae, then you you would use them alongside Yae, as none of the other stellar supports are really comparable to her right now. And then you would have to make another character as good as that to replace Yae on this team. I just don't think that's really likely. The support power creep in this game would have to be insane for that to happen, and it would have to happen twice for one team archetype. And both of those characters would have to actually be a substantial increase over Yae to even make them worth pulling for. At what point is this borderline cope? And characters having a team that has an old unit in them is not even really that extraordinary. Both Flint and Nefer never got 4 slots to complete their teams. Hell, Sucrose is best in slot for the both of them, or you can just float around and run different flex slots for them, whatever suits your situation best. And Shenhe is still theoretically the best in slot support for Skirk, where Solali's mostly used in clears because she has greater benefits. So again, that's also a team that doesn't really have a strong 4th slot. But with Yae, she was buffed specifically to work with Sanjone, and she's so strong that she's essentially as good as a dedicated support. And with the fact that Stellar Conduct teams have 2 other slots that rather get replaced, on top of the 2, potentially 3 other team archetypes that we have in Sneznaya, I just think it's very unlikely that we're going to see a Yae replacement. If you want to make the safest bet, then you should get the vertical on the character that you want, whether it's Sandrone, Risley, or Sino's constellations and weapons, but otherwise I really don't think you can go wrong with Yae. And with the 7.0 stuff just coming out, I feel like I'm pretty safe in that bet. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on Yae, as I would love to hear it, and I respond to almost every single comment. Channel members, thank you so much for your continued support. It means the world to me. I hope you guys have fun pulling for Yae to make your stellar DPSs viable. Thank you to everyone else for watching the video, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.